Now, last year, Greg, Paulo, and some input from John Polk and myself tuned up a form that we thought made a lot more sense and a little more elegant. And I have some exciting news to share with you that we think we can actually use both forms towards your benefit. And I'll begin to explain that for you right now. First of all, why do we have to do LVAP reporting? Well, it's required. The national bylaws, section 1.2, say each body has to keep records of its proceedings. And the state bylaws say that in Article 3, paragraph 6, the responsibility of the adjutants, or in this case, the LVAP coordinators, are required to submit timely records to the organization. We all belong to an all-volunteer organization, DAVA, all volunteers, and everything that we do for the veteran, the disabled veteran, the spouse, the children, those are going to be counted in these LVAP hours. Now, National uses these hours so that they can decide when and where our volunteer has been taking place. How they can use that statistical data so that can prove that we are accomplishing our mission. And the statistics help donors see that we're actually doing the job. Now, reporting your hours, it says National has requested that all chapters begin to use the latest Form 60. We might as well strike that right now and say they are demanding that we use federal Form 60. The LVAP chapter reports, which were in the past due by the 15th of the following month, are no longer allowed to the 15th. They want them in by the 5th. Also, especially this year, if your chapter is shut down in place due to COVID, send into vavs.org a statement that your chapter is in COVID shutdown so that they know that that's why they're not getting any hours. So what is Form 60? What is this national form? Well, it's a Microsoft Excel workbook, and it's got 4 tabs across the bottom. The first one is the monthly timesheet, which is basically your member information. The second tab says instructions, the third says location codes, and the fourth are these new job descriptions. The location codes I will show you in just the next slide or so. In the job descriptions, basically there's 9 categories of things they want us to keep track of. 9. Here's what the new Form 60 looks like. I'm in Chapter 31 as the adjutant as well, so unfortunately I grabbed my guys here just to show you what it looks like. It moves across with your typical name, address, city, state, and zip. And that's, if you notice the down arrow I've got here, and it's the monthly timesheet area. Now this spreadsheet, most spreadsheets, Excel, keep going down. This one goes across horizontally. And it's important to realize that if you print this thing off blank and take it into your members to have them fill out the number of hours prior to a chapter meeting, you could end up with a lot of pages. So we're going to make this better. Here's the second page going across. It's just a little bit more information. This time they're adding email and the date and everything. And now we bump into, still moving horizontally across, we bump into the location code. Wisconsin has been assigned 48,000, or like I'd like to say, 480 XX. Now the 480 is our code for Wisconsin. The XX are your last 2 chapter numbers. In other words, like you're going to see here, Red River chapter 31. So I have all of my entries here as 4831. Then you'll notice it's got date volunteered, followed by a job description. That's one of these new 9 that I'll be discussing. And then how many hours per each type of job description. Now, the date volunteered, you could take this thing and literally track every single volunteer every single day of the month and keep putting in all of these different dates and times. And I absolutely believe nobody in their right mind is going to do that. National will accept that if we use the end of the month date here, that's all that's necessary. So when you fill this out, you're going to be putting in the end of the month date. And then you're going to go and start using a pull down method. There's a little black arrow that'll appear right next to job description, and you'll pick out the proper job description. Now there's 5 of these that go across on this line for each of your members. So you could have somebody that's doing fundraising, you could have somebody that's doing legislative, and you can pull down and just put in how many hours for each different type. Now let's take a look at what these new job descriptions are. There's the chapter service officer. That's within the chapter. Then we have DAV outreach, department service officer. That's the state level service officer. Fundraising, grassroots legislative, homeless stand down, LVAP, special events, and something we've always had, veteran assistance. Notice only these job descriptions can be used. You won't have any other choice when you hit that little pull down arrow I just described. You're going to have to select one of these. So the chapter service officer is no longer listed on the chapter officer's report. They have a separate form that gets submitted. I threw that in just as a reminder. These are any hours that are worked by an official chapter service officer, and that service officer must be reported as your chapter service officers with certification, or these hours don't count. DAV outreach. Many hours dedicated to the mission, and here are the seminars, the workshops, the training, certifications, I mean, all of these big items, and you can include these hours if you're having it during a chapter meeting where you're going over these things, planning, formalizing, reporting on, then you can list this DAV outreach if this is done at a meeting where you're covering this. But a normal chapter meeting does not do this specifically with these things, these workshops, then you can't count those hours at this point as in the chapter meeting. Then you have the department service officer, and once again, we're talking only about the state service officer. And that state service officer, again, has to be certified. And it said, otherwise they will not be credited. So these should be reported whether the DSO is working in a paid or a non-paid position. Fundraising. I decided to throw a little reminder up here for everybody because we can get in a lot of hot water with fundraising if it doesn't meet the approval of the national organization. There's plenty of types of things that we've been doing for years that are acceptable. Some of the things here you can see: forget-me-nots, sweepstakes, Golden Corral events, 5K events, those type of things. Those are all fine. Also, we are reminded with fundraising, we don't want to step on the toes of a nearby chapter if they're not going to do anything, but they give you permission to go in and say, do an A&W root beer thing. I know my chapter did that for the last couple of years, and it's okay if we have permission. Now, grassroots legislative, this is another one that has a asterisk by it. This gets filled out by the chapter BPTL person. In other words, every chapter should have a benefit protection team leader. And this is where they're going to include their hours that they spent contacting legislative, preparing, setting up meetings, attending seminars or benefits or whatever, attending conferences. So this is where anything to do with legislative goes. Homeless stand down is another specific category. Now this one is kind of a lot like our veteran outreach programs that we have all over the state. And I've been to many of them, and our chapter has set up tables and booths and brought in literature on DAV and brought in applications for membership. But you want to be careful on this one because this is talking about homeless stand down. The point of this particular event must be so that it goes to homeless veterans. LVAP, well, here's our favorite word for the day. And what's nice about this particular one, this is one of the 9, but this one right here is also the catch-all. If you can't put it in any of the other categories I just described, you can put it in LVAP. So when in doubt, it goes in LVAP. Okay? So nothing's going to fall through the cracks here. Now, special events, here they're speaking about DAV or auxiliary fairs, National Guard mobilization and demobilization, Memorial Day events, Veterans Day events. I know I've been a speaker at the schools myself. In the times that we do these things and we have programs to clean cemeteries and whatnot, this would be where this type of information goes. And once again, if your chapter discusses this at a meeting and works on it, then this can be counted. Otherwise, just a typical meeting does not get counted under special events. And finally, veterans assistance. So any hours dedicated to the direct assistance of the veteran, the spouse, or the family, yard work here, home repairs, grocery shopping, driving them to and from places. Direct assistance to veterans can be pretty much anything. I know our chapter just recently raised a collection for one of our members whose farm burned down. Now, relationship between salary, per diem, travel, and expenses. Salary. Not all volunteer hours count if you are paid a salary stipend for your work. The amount you are paid has to be deducted from your hours, and the remaining hours become volunteer hours. So let's take example. The current dollar value of an hour's worth of volunteer work is $25.43. If you had 8 hours that you had put in and you were able to be paid back for 4 hours, you would have then 4 hours under LVAP that you can file, but not the 8. That would be double dipping. You've already been paid for 4. You can only claim the leftover 4. Per diem travel expenses. These are not paid hours. Don't confuse this. This is a compensation package that includes meals, wear and tear on the vehicles, tolls, and if you are, for example, as I was last year, a district executive committee person, and you're going around doing all of your chapter work, you can have an expense submissions at the end of the month, and they have certain rules and regulations on what's within reason. And but all of those hours then, when you're doing that, those fit into that catch-all LVAP category. Now, youth volunteering is really important, and this is where we have seen a lot of activity and excitement in our chapter. School districts often require that the students going on, and I know this from teaching at a college and also from presenting scholarships at high schools, that they are looking for the student to be a well-rounded student. And so we want to take advantage of that by letting them know that their volunteering would cover a school requirement, maybe a college admission requirement, and that also moves them into a position to earn an award from the state of Wisconsin. Now, the first place in Wisconsin each year gets a $250 check, second place $150, and third $100. I was the committee chair on this year. We had outstanding candidates, and it was really, really nice to see Commander Kampanen and Kevin Johnson come around and come to the chapters and present these awards to the deserving students. Of course, the bigger hitters are the scholarship programs. You had specified $100 at the VA Medical Center. I think it's over time, it could be, as long as they have 100 hours, they're asking us still to put those in, and these are big ones. Now, I threw this slide on here just to point out that you can always go out to the dav.org, and then you can go under help, support, and volunteer, and then you can call up a few slides here that show us how we can volunteer for veterans and things like the scholarship program I just talked about. And then notice there's a thing called volunteer incentives. How you can say thanks to veterans, connecting with veterans, how you can sign a veteran up for help. Again, using these 8 or 9 categories that we've got now, everything that we can do, we want to make sure that we give the credit for our time and our talent and our skills, and show that we're helpful. Now, National recognizes that with an outstanding little thing that in the sales world they call a spiff. And you've probably all seen these on the collars of our members where they have a little pin that says, I have got 3,000 hours in LVAP, or I have 2,000. And then they have these different award levels and things that you can get. Again, it's just a little thank you. It's a nod for somebody that's actually out there putting in a good effort. Now, the state of Wisconsin doesn't shirk on that either. The state of Wisconsin has 4 awards. If your chapter is really large and has over 500 members, you're in Division 1. 250 to 500, Division 2, and less than 250 is Division 3. There's individual awards, and the highest chapter in each of these divisions can win a trophy and a $250 check. The highest individual wins a certificate and $100. We also have Volunteer of the Year. The highest individual LVAP winner is qualified for a $100 check, and they get a dress shirt, a DAV dress shirt. If you're in second place, you get something like what I'm wearing right at the moment, a polo shirt. And third place, you get a t-shirt. And they point out that you are in the DAV Wisconsin Volunteer of the Award winner. Now, I didn't bring up any information on the awards. I wanted to keep this to the Form 60 and strictly to the LVAP portion. And as we know, Greg Paulo, who was our LVAP coordinator last year and did a great job in trying to organize and lay the groundwork for this year, handles the awards this year. So I'm going to let him take care of that in his own presentation. So back to LVAP. Where do we stand right now? As of the 6th of September, 2020, using Form 60 and having it in by the 5th, we ranked nationally in 3rd place. Really good job. Divisionally, we came in 1st. And then in the Department of Wisconsin, remember under these 9 new categories, these 9 new job descriptions, Chapter 24, Manitowoc and Two Rivers just totally dominated in those categories. So that was an outstanding effort of getting it in on time and reporting it. Now, we have looked at this Form 60 and we've spotted a couple of issues that have been glaring to Greg and myself and John. You would have to print out a lot of blank pages with this thing because of the way it's constructed. There's no accumulators that show any kind of running totals for the chapters. There's no monthly breakout. And requesting individual dates for each job, for each person, for a whole month is just frankly beyond the pale. So we've got what we call Wisconsin Rev D. Our revised Form D keeps track of all of these things basically within a 1, 2, or 3-page format. Greg has designed this. There had, like I say, input from John Polk and myself. And here is what the Form D looks like. Now, once again, I've got Chapter 31 sitting here, and you can see I've got the name and address information. And then I've got the 9 categories, the 9 new categories that are on Form 60. If you look up in the chapter heading area, you can see that each of those are identified once again with what they are, what they mean. So just as Greg had built this last year, this works on the same principle. You go to January, you can put your people in, and as soon as you do, automatically through the whole year, all of your member information is going to be out there for each month. So this is clicked on July just for the heck of it. And this would mean now that if this was nearing the end of the month and I was going to go in, our chapter meets right at the end of the month, I would print off this blank page for July. Okay, I'm only going to print off this one page. I'm going to lay it on the table, and as our membership comes in, or after we have go to the chapter and the closing information, I make sure nobody leaves without filling out their hours in the appropriate columns. And then what do? You take that back with you. You open up your federal Form 60, and you just simply type these hours in where it belongs on the federal Form 60. When you get that in, you save federal Form 60 and send that to National. Send me a copy. National does not want to see this Form D. This is just for our own in-house use. And like I say, if the most you could have is 3 pages here, instead of just take up a whole 3-4 tables worth of empty sheets. So I strongly recommend that you use this. It'll simplify the whole system. Now, where are you going to find this? On our state website, we have put out, thank you, Ann and Deidre, we have the Rev Ds out there, all 3 of them, 1, 2, and 3. Once again, Rev D 1 is for 27 people or less, Rev D 2, 57 or less, and Rev D 3 over 57. Once again, every chapter has to turn in their hours by the 5th of the following month, no longer the 15th. And in the past, and it has been known that some chapters didn't turn in any throughout the whole year, waited till the end of the year, and bombarded National with a whole year's worth of LVAP. This is now completely unacceptable. These things have to be in by the 5th of the following month. Okay? So here again, I've got my name and address information. If you need anything, if you need an LVAP 60 and you're not happy with what you see out there, if you have any questions, any way I can help, you certainly can get in touch with me. I have some of the pre-filled forms for the 60. I have some of the pre-filled forms for the Wisconsin Form Ds, where your membership information is already included. Now, some of that went around last year, and so if you didn't get it or you misplaced it or your coordinator decided to move to a warmer state, you can get in touch with me and I can send those along.